My family abandoned me at Los Angeles International Airport when I was 14 years old. Not because I did anything wrong, but because my older sister spread a brutal lie, and my parents believed her without question. They left me alone in one of the busiest airports in the world, took my passport, took my phone, and boarded a flight to Italy for the family vacation I'd been dreaming about for months. I watched them disappear through the gate, a child surrounded by thousands of strangers, and I realized something that would change my life forever. I was completely alone. 16 years later, they saw me on national television, and their world stopped. Because the girl they threw away had become someone they never imagined. Someone powerful. Someone successful. Someone who remembered everything. And this time, I had something they desperately wanted. Forgiveness they would never receive. My name is Maya, and this is the story of how betrayal taught me that family is a choice, not an obligation, and how the sweetest revenge is becoming everything they said you'd never be. Let me take you back to July 15, 2008, the day my childhood ended in Terminal B of LAX. I was 14 years old, excited beyond words because we were finally going to Italy. My parents had been planning this trip for over a year. 2 weeks in Rome, Florence, and Venice. It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime, the kind of family vacation you remember forever. I'd been learning Italian phrases from YouTube videos, reading travel blogs, making lists of everything I wanted to see. The Colosseum, the Trevi Fountain, the canals of Venice. I'd never been out of California, and this felt like the beginning of something magical. I should have known better. Nothing in my family was ever magical for me. I was the middle child, perpetually invisible between my older sister Vanessa, who was 17 and perfect at everything, and my younger brother Tyler, who was 10 and could do no wrong. Vanessa was beautiful, popular, got straight A's without trying. Tyler was the baby, charming and spoiled. And I was just Maya, the one nobody really noticed unless something went wrong. We arrived at LAX at 6 in the morning for our 11 a.m. flight. My father, Robert, was stressed about parking and checking bags. My mother, Patricia, was fussing over Tyler, making sure he had his Nintendo DS and snacks for the flight. Vanessa was on her phone, texting her boyfriend, barely acknowledging any of us. And I was trying to contain my excitement, trying not to be too enthusiastic because that always seemed to annoy everyone. We made it through security and found our gate. I sat with my backpack, reading my Italian phrasebook, when my mother's phone rang. I watched her face change as she answered, watched the color drain from her cheeks, watched her eyes go wide with shock and then narrow with anger. "What do you mean unauthorized charges?" she said into the phone, her voice getting louder. "How much? $8,000? That's impossible. I haven't made any purchases like that." Everyone in our gate area was starting to stare. My father grabbed the phone from her, talking in a harsh whisper to whoever was on the other end. I could hear fragments: fraud, investigation, online purchases, 3 days ago. My stomach started to twist with anxiety, not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I knew somehow, someway, this was going to become my problem. It always did. My father hung up and looked at my mother with an expression I'd never seen before. Pure fury mixed with panic. "Someone used your credit card to make over $8,000 in purchases online. Designer clothes, electronics, jewelry. All in the last 3 days. All shipped to addresses in Los Angeles." And then Vanessa, my beautiful, perfect older sister, said the words that would destroy my life. It was Maya. Everyone turned to look at me. I felt my face go hot, my heart start pounding. "What? No. I didn't. I would never." "Don't lie," Vanessa said, and her voice was so convincing, so hurt and disappointed. "I saw you, Maya. 2 nights ago, you were on Mom's laptop. I came into the living room, and you minimized the screen really fast, like you were hiding something. I didn't think anything of it at the time, but now it makes sense." "I was doing homework," I said, my voice coming out too high, too desperate. "I was working on my history paper. I wasn't shopping. I wasn't using Mom's credit card. I swear." My mother's eyes were cold, so cold. Maya, if you're lying to us right now, this is your chance to tell the truth. Did you take my credit card information? No. I was crying now, tears streaming down my face, people all around us watching this family drama unfold. I didn't do anything. I promise. Please, you have to believe me. Vanessa pulled out her phone with a theatrical sigh. I didn't want to have to show you this, but I took screenshots. I was worried about Maya's behavior lately, so I've been paying attention. She showed our parents her phone screen, and I watched their faces harden. This is Maya's email address, Vanessa said, pointing. Connected to all these purchases. Designer handbags, expensive makeup, a new laptop. All shipped to different addresses around LA. I looked at the screen, and my blood ran cold. It did look like my email address. maya.chen2008@gmail.com. But my actual email was maya.chen08@gmail.com. Someone had created a fake account, almost identical to mine, just different enough to fool anyone who wasn't paying close attention. That's not my email, I said desperately. Look closely. That's not my account. Someone made a fake one. Someone is framing me. But my parents weren't listening. They were too angry, too embarrassed by the scene we were causing, too convinced by Vanessa's evidence. I can't believe you, my mother said, and her voice was shaking. I can't believe you would steal from your own family. Do you know what $8,000 means to us? Do you know how hard your father works? I didn't do it. I was sobbing now, barely able to breathe. Please, just let me show you my actual email. Let me prove it wasn't me. Please. My father stood up, his face red with rage. You know what? You don't deserve this vacation. You don't deserve to be part of this family right now. We've worked too hard, saved too long for this trip, and I will not let you ruin it with your lies and your theft. Dad, please, I begged. Please don't do this. I'm telling the truth. I didn't steal anything. He reached into my backpack and pulled out my passport. Then he took my phone from my hand. You'll stay here. You'll think about what you've done. And when we get back in 2 weeks, we'll deal with this properly. Maybe some time alone will teach you about consequences. I couldn't process what was happening. You're leaving me here? At the airport. I'm 14 years old. You can't just leave me here. You should have thought about that before you stole from your mother, he said coldly. My mother was crying, but she didn't stop him. Tyler looked confused and scared. And Vanessa, my sister, the person who should have protected me, looked satisfied. Actually satisfied. There are security guards everywhere, my father said. You'll be fine. Figure out how to get home. Maybe that will teach you some responsibility. They started walking toward the gate. Our flight was boarding. I ran after them, grabbing my mother's arm. Mom, please. Please don't leave me. I'm scared. I didn't do anything wrong. Please believe me. She pulled her arm away, and the look she gave me was full of disgust. Stop making a scene, Maya. You've embarrassed us enough. I watched them show their boarding passes. Watched them walk down the jetway. Watched my entire family disappear, leaving me alone in an airport with no phone, no passport, no way to contact anyone, and only $20 in my pocket. I stood there in shock, unable to move, unable to think. People walked around me, rushing to their own flights, living their normal lives while mine fell apart. A security guard approached me. Miss, are you okay? Where are your parents? And that's when reality hit. I was alone. Truly, completely alone. I was 14 years old, and my family had just abandoned me in one of the busiest airports in the world. I started hyperventilating, panic attack taking over. The security guard called for help, and suddenly I was surrounded by airport staff, all asking questions I couldn't answer. Where were my parents? What flight were they on? Did I have anyone to call? Eventually, they took me to a security office and called Child Protective Services. I spent the next 6 hours in that office, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me, staring at the wall, trying to understand how my life had gone from excited vacation anticipation to complete nightmare in the span of 2 hours. A social worker arrived, a kind woman named Mrs. Rodriguez who spoke softly and didn't treat me like a criminal. "Maya, I'm going to take you to a temporary shelter while we try to contact your parents. Can you tell me what happened?" I told her everything. The credit card fraud, Vanessa's accusation, the fake email address, my parents' decision to leave me. I told her I was innocent, that I'd been framed, that I had proof if someone would just listen. She believed me. Or at least, she acted like she did. "We'll figure this out," she promised. "But right now, I need to get you somewhere safe." The shelter was in downtown LA, a facility for children in crisis situations. Runaways, abuse victims, kids whose parents had been arrested. And now me, the girl whose family had literally thrown her away. I spent 3 days there, 3 of the longest days of my life. The other kids were nice enough, but I felt like I was in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. During the day, I was allowed to use the computer in the shelter's library. And that's when I started investigating. I was good with computers, always had been. While Vanessa was popular and Tyler was athletic, I was the tech nerd who built websites for fun and taught myself coding from YouTube tutorials. I logged into my real email account and started tracing. I found the fake email address Vanessa had created. I found the purchase confirmations, and I noticed something crucial. All the items had been shipped to the same address. An address I recognized. It was Vanessa's boyfriend's apartment. Marcus Chin, a 21-year-old college dropout who Vanessa had been secretly dating for 6 months. Our parents didn't know about him because he was too old, had no job, and lived in a sketchy part of town. But I knew, because I'd seen them together, and Vanessa had threatened me to keep quiet. Suddenly, everything made sense. Vanessa had stolen Mom's credit card information. She'd created a fake email address that looked like mine. She'd ordered thousands of dollars worth of stuff for herself and Marcus. And when the charges were discovered, she'd blamed me. She'd planned the whole thing, knowing we'd be at the airport, knowing our parents would be stressed and angry, knowing they'd believe her over me. She'd deliberately destroyed my life to cover her own theft. I documented everything. I took screenshots of the fake email, the shipping addresses, the timeline of purchases. I even found Marcus's social media posts showing him with some of the items that had been purchased, designer sneakers and a new gaming console, posted just 2 days before we were supposed to leave for Italy. I had proof. Irrefutable, undeniable proof that I was innocent and Vanessa was guilty. On the 4th day, my parents finally returned to LA. They'd cut their vacation short, apparently too worried about the credit card fraud to enjoy Italy. Mrs. Rodriguez arranged a meeting at the shelter. I walked into that conference room with my folder of evidence, ready to prove my innocence, ready for my parents to apologize and take me home and punish Vanessa instead. But that's not what happened. My parents looked tired and angry. They barely made eye contact with me. "We've decided," my father said without preamble, "that you need professional help. We're looking into boarding schools, places that specialize in troubled teens. You clearly need more structure and discipline than we can provide." "But I have proof," I said, opening my folder. "I can show you that I didn't do it. I can prove that Vanessa—" "Enough," my mother cut me off. "We don't want to hear more lies, Maya. We've talked to Vanessa. She's devastated by what you did, by how you're trying to blame her now. We know the truth." I stared at them in disbelief. "You won't even look at the evidence? You won't even consider that maybe, just maybe, your perfect daughter isn't so perfect?" "Watch your tone," my father snapped. "You're in enough trouble already." Mrs. Rodriguez intervened. "Mr. and Mrs. Chin, I really think you should look at what Maya has compiled. She's been very thorough, and some of these findings are concerning." Reluctantly, my parents looked through my folder. I watched their faces as they saw the fake email address, the shipping address, the social media posts. I watched doubt creep into their expressions. This doesn't prove anything, my mother said finally, but her voice was uncertain. Vanessa wouldn't do this. She has no reason to frame you. She has every reason, I said quietly. She's dating Marcus Chin. He's 21. She's been seeing him for months. You didn't know because she knew you'd disapprove. All those purchases were sent to his apartment. She used Mom's card, created a fake email to make it look like me, and blamed me when she got caught. She planned the whole thing. The silence in the room was deafening. You're lying, my mother said, but she didn't sound convinced anymore. Call Vanessa, I challenged. Ask her about Marcus. Ask her to explain why all the purchases went to his address. Ask her to show you her phone, her real messages. If I'm lying, you'll know. My father pulled out his phone and called Vanessa. I couldn't hear her side of the conversation, but I watched his face change as he asked her questions. About Marcus. About the address. About the purchases. When he hung up, he looked 10 years older. She admitted it, he said quietly. She's been seeing this Marcus person. She said she panicked when the charges were discovered. She said she didn't mean for it to go this far. She didn't mean for it to go this far? I repeated, and I felt something break inside me. She framed me for theft. She let you abandon me at an airport. She watched you leave me alone and scared, and she said nothing. And you're saying she didn't mean for it to go this far. My mother was crying. Maya, we're so sorry. We made a terrible mistake. We should have listened to you. We should have investigated before we reacted. Please, forgive us. Let's go home and work this out as a family. I looked at these people who were supposed to love me, supposed to protect me, supposed to believe in me. And I realized something fundamental. They weren't my family. Not really. Family doesn't abandon you. Family doesn't believe lies over truth. Family doesn't throw you away when things get difficult. No, I said simply. Mrs. Rodriguez looked surprised. Maya, your parents are willing to take you home. We can arrange family counseling, work through this together. I don't want to go home, I said, and my voice was steady, calm, certain. I want to be emancipated. I want to legally separate from them. Because they're not my family anymore. My father's face went red. Don't be ridiculous. You're 14 years old. You can't just decide you don't want parents anymore. You decided you didn't want a daughter when you left me at LAX, I said. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. The next few months were complicated and painful. California law allows minors to petition for emancipation under certain circumstances, and my case was unusual enough that a judge agreed to hear it. I had to prove I could support myself financially, that I had a safe place to live, and that emancipation was in my best interest. Mrs. Rodriguez helped me navigate the system. She connected me with a pro bono lawyer who believed in my case. She helped me find a part-time job doing web design for small businesses. She even helped me find a room to rent with a family friend who was willing to be my guardian until the emancipation went through. My parents fought it at first, hiring their own lawyer, arguing that I was too young, too emotional, making a mistake I'd regret. But when the judge heard the full story, heard about the abandonment at LAX, heard about how they'd believed Vanessa's lies without investigation, heard about how they'd refused to look at evidence even when it was presented to them, the decision was clear. On my 15th birthday, I was legally emancipated. I was no longer Maya Chen, daughter of Robert and Patricia. I was just Maya Chen, independent minor, responsible for my own life. It should have felt liberating. Instead, it felt lonely. I threw myself into work and school with an intensity that worried the few adults who cared about me. I took online classes so I could graduate early. I built websites and did graphic design, saving every penny. I taught myself advanced coding, digital marketing, app development. By 16, I'd graduated high school. By 17, I'd saved enough money to start my first real business, a social media management company for small businesses. By 18, I'd sold that company for $200,000 and used the money to start something bigger. I created an app called Verify, designed to help people fact-check information and identify fake accounts online. It was inspired by my own experience, by the fake email address that had destroyed my life. The app used AI to detect fraudulent accounts, verify identities, and protect people from scams and impersonation. It went viral. Within 6 months, we had 10 million users. Within a year, major tech companies were trying to buy us. By the time I was 22, Verify was valued at over $1 billion, and I was being called one of the most innovative young entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. I'd made it. I'd become successful beyond my wildest dreams. But success didn't heal the wound. Late at night, when the work was done and the meetings were over, I still thought about that day at LAX. I still felt the panic of watching my family walk away. I still heard my mother's voice saying I'd embarrassed them enough. And I still wondered if they ever thought about me, if they ever regretted what they'd done, if they ever realized what they'd thrown away. I got my answer when I was 30 years old. My company had just gone public, and I was invited to be interviewed on Good Morning America, one of the biggest morning shows in the country. It was a huge opportunity, a chance to talk about Verify, about protecting people online, about my journey from teenage entrepreneur to tech CEO. I said yes, not thinking about who might be watching. The interview was scheduled for a Tuesday morning in April. I flew to New York, stayed in a nice hotel, prepared my talking points. I was nervous but excited. This was the kind of visibility that could take Verify to the next level. The morning of the interview, I sat in the green room, getting my makeup done, reviewing my notes. The producer came in to brief me on the segment. "We're going to start with your success story," she said. "Then talk about Verify and how it works. And then, if you're comfortable, we'd love to hear about your personal story. We did some background research, and your journey is incredible. Emancipated at 15, built $1 billion company by 22. Our audience will love it." I hesitated. I'd never talked publicly about my family, about the abandonment, about why I'd been emancipated. It felt too personal, too painful. But another part of me, the part that had been carrying this story for 16 years, wanted to tell it. Wanted the world to know what had happened. Wanted my family to know that I'd survived and thrived despite them. "Okay," I said. "I'll talk about it." The interview started normally. The host, a warm woman named Jennifer, asked about Verify, about the technology, about our growth. I answered confidently, professionally. And then she shifted gears. "Maya, your personal story is remarkable. You were emancipated from your parents at 15 and built this empire essentially on your own. Can you tell us about that journey?" I took a deep breath. This was it. The moment I'd been unconsciously preparing for since that day at LAX. When I was 14, I began, and my voice was steady. My family abandoned me at Los Angeles International Airport. They left me there alone, took my passport and phone, and flew to Italy without me. The reason? My older sister had framed me for credit card fraud, and my parents believed her without question. They didn't investigate. They didn't listen to my side. They just decided I was guilty and left me there as punishment. I watched Jennifer's face change from professional interest to genuine shock. "They left you at the airport? A 14-year-old child?" "Yes. I spent the next few days in a shelter while they were on vacation. When they came back, I showed them proof that I was innocent, that my sister had committed the fraud and blamed me. They eventually believed the evidence. But by then, something had broken. I realized that people who truly love you don't abandon you when things get hard. They don't believe the worst about you without investigation. So I petitioned for emancipation, and at 15, I became legally independent." The studio was completely silent. "That's an incredible story," Jennifer said softly. "And clearly, you've turned that pain into something powerful. Verify is all about protecting people from fraud and impersonation, which is exactly what happened to you." "Exactly," I said. "I built Verify because I know what it's like to be falsely accused, to have someone create a fake identity to destroy your life. I wanted to create tools that would protect other people from experiencing what I went through. Have you reconciled with your family? Jennifer asked. It was the question I'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. No, I said simply. I haven't spoken to them in 16 years. They made their choice when they left me at that airport. I've made my choice to build a life without them. And I'm happy with that choice. The interview continued for a few more minutes, but that moment was what everyone would remember. That revelation, broadcast live to millions of people across the country. I flew back to Los Angeles that afternoon, feeling strange, exposed but also liberated. I'd finally told my story, and the response was overwhelming. My social media exploded with messages of support. News outlets picked up the story. Tech CEO reveals childhood abandonment was trending on Twitter. And then, 2 days after the interview aired, I got an email. The subject line was simple. Please read this, Mom. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Dear Maya, we saw your interview on Good Morning America. We had no idea you'd become so successful, so accomplished. We're so proud of you. We know we made terrible mistakes when you were young. We've regretted that day at the airport every day since. We were wrong to believe Vanessa without investigating. We were wrong to leave you there. We were wrong about everything. We'd love the chance to reconnect, to be part of your life again, to make amends for the past. You're our daughter, and we love you. We've always loved you. Please give us a chance to prove that we've changed, that we're different now. We want to be a family again. Love, Mom and Dad. I read the email 3 times, feeling absolutely nothing. No anger, no sadness, no longing. Just a cold, empty space where family feelings should have been. I didn't respond. Instead, I got another email the next day, this time from Vanessa. Maya, I saw your interview. I need to talk to you. What I did was unforgivable, and I've lived with the guilt every day since. I was young and stupid and scared, and I made the worst decision of my life. I destroyed our family. I destroyed you. And I'm so sorry. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging for the chance to apologize in person, to try to make things right. Please. I'm your sister. We used to be close before everything went wrong. Can we please talk? I deleted that email without finishing it. The audacity of these people, reaching out only after seeing me on national television, only after realizing I was successful and wealthy and influential. Where were these emails when I was 15 and struggling? Where was this remorse when I was building my first company, working 18-hour days, doing it all alone? They didn't want me. They wanted access to my success. They wanted to be associated with the tech CEO, not the daughter they'd thrown away. Over the next few weeks, the emails kept coming. My mother, my father, Vanessa, even Tyler, my younger brother who was now 26 and apparently felt guilty about not defending me back then. They all wanted to reconnect. They all wanted forgiveness. They all wanted a second chance. I ignored them all. But then my mother did something that forced my hand. She gave an interview to a tabloid magazine, telling her side of the story. In her version, they'd made a mistake in a moment of stress, but they'd always loved Maya, and were heartbroken by the estrangement. She painted herself as the victim, the mother whose daughter had cut her off, who'd built walls that couldn't be broken down. She made it sound like I was the unreasonable one, holding a grudge over a simple misunderstanding. The article was titled, "Tech Billionaire Maya Chen's Mother Speaks. I Just Want My Daughter Back." It was manipulative, dishonest, and infuriating. So I decided to respond. Not privately, but publicly. If they wanted to play this game in the media, I'd play it better. I wrote a detailed post on my company blog, titled "The Truth About Family, Abandonment, and Why Some Bridges Should Stay Burned." In it, I told the complete story. Not the sanitized version from the Good Morning America interview, but the full, detailed account. I included screenshots of the fake email address Vanessa had created. I included the timeline of events, the evidence I'd compiled at 14, the fact that my parents had refused to look at proof even when it was presented. I included details about the 3 days I'd spent in a shelter, about the emancipation process, about building my life from nothing while they went on with theirs. I talked about the 16 years of silence, and how they'd only reached out after seeing me on television. I talked about my mother's tabloid interview and how it was a perfect example of the manipulation I'd experienced my entire childhood. And I ended with this: family is not defined by blood. It's defined by love, support, trust, and loyalty. The people who abandoned me at LAX were related to me by biology, but they were never my family. My family is the people who believed in me when I had nothing, who supported me when I was building my dreams, who stood by me through failures and successes. My family is chosen, not given. To my biological relatives who are suddenly interested in reconnecting, you had 16 years to reach out. You had 16 years to apologize, to make amends, to show that you cared. You chose silence. You chose to move on with your lives while I built mine from scratch. And now that I'm successful, now that I'm visible, now that I'm someone you can benefit from knowing, suddenly you want to be family again. The answer is no. You don't get to abandon someone and then come back when it's convenient. You don't get to throw away a child and then claim her successes as your own. You don't get to rewrite history and play the victim. I am not your redemption story. I am not your second chance. I am not your daughter anymore. I'm just Maya Chen, CEO of Verify, and I'm doing just fine without you. The post went viral immediately. Within hours, it had millions of views. The response was overwhelmingly supportive. People shared their own stories of family estrangement, of being abandoned or betrayed by people who were supposed to love them. My story resonated because it was real, raw, and unapologetic. But it also created a firestorm. News outlets picked it up. Think pieces were written about family obligations and forgiveness. Some people criticized me for being too harsh, for not giving my family a second chance, for airing private matters publicly. But most people understood. Most people recognized that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, that some relationships are too toxic to maintain, that sometimes the healthiest choice is to walk away and never look back. My mother responded with another interview, this time crying on camera, talking about how hurt she was by my post, how she'd tried so hard to reconnect, how I was punishing her for a mistake made 16 years ago. But the public wasn't buying it anymore. People had read my detailed account. They'd seen the evidence. They understood that this wasn't about holding a grudge over a simple mistake. This was about a pattern of favoritism, manipulation, and abandonment that had defined my entire childhood. The story eventually died down, as all stories do. But it had accomplished what I needed. It had set the record straight. My family couldn't rewrite history anymore. They couldn't play the victims. The truth was out there, documented and public, and nothing they said could change it. 6 months after my blog post, I got one final email. This time from Vanessa. Maya, I'm not asking for forgiveness anymore. I know I don't deserve it. I just want you to know the truth about why I did what I did. I was pregnant. Marcus had gotten me pregnant, and I was terrified. I needed money for an abortion, but I couldn't tell Mom and Dad. So I stole the credit card and bought things I could sell for cash. When the charges were discovered, I panicked. I blamed you because I knew they'd believe me over you. I knew you were the easy target. I watched them leave you at that airport, and I said nothing because I was a coward. I was scared and selfish and cruel. I got the abortion. Marcus and I broke up a month later. And I've lived with the guilt of what I did to you every single day since. I destroyed your childhood to solve a problem that could have been handled so many other ways. I destroyed our family because I was too scared to tell the truth. I don't expect you to respond to this. I don't expect anything from you. I just needed you to know that what I did wasn't about you. It was about my own cowardice. You didn't deserve any of it. You were innocent, and I destroyed you anyway. I'm sorry. I'll be sorry for the rest of my life. I hope you're happy. I hope your life is everything you dreamed it would be. And I hope someday, the guilt I carry will feel like enough punishment for what I did to you. Vanessa. I read that email sitting in my office, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. The same city where I'd been abandoned, where I'd struggled and survived, where I'd built an empire from nothing. Part of me felt vindicated. She'd finally admitted the full truth, finally acknowledged the magnitude of what she'd done. But another part of me just felt sad. Sad for the 14-year-old girl who'd been sacrificed for her sister's secret. Sad for the family that could have been but never was. Sad for all the years wasted on anger and pain. I didn't respond to Vanessa's email either. Not because I was trying to punish her, but because there was nothing left to say. Her apology didn't change the past. It didn't undo the abandonment or the years of struggle. It didn't make us sisters again. It was just words, too little and far too late. Instead, I focused on the future. I expanded Verify into new markets, launched new features, hired amazing people who became my real family. I started a foundation that provided resources and support for emancipated minors, kids who were navigating the system alone just like I had. I funded scholarships, created mentorship programs, built a network of support for young people who'd been abandoned by their families. Helping others heal helped me heal. Giving them the support I'd never had gave meaning to my suffering. My pain had a purpose now, beyond just proving something to people who didn't matter. I also started dating seriously for the first time. I'd been so focused on building my career that I'd neglected my personal life. But at 31, I met someone who changed everything. Her name was Alex, and she was a journalist who'd covered my story with empathy and nuance. We started as friends, then became more, and eventually, she became my family. The real kind of family, the kind that chooses you and stays. We got married 2 years later in a small ceremony in Big Sur, surrounded by friends and chosen family. No biological relatives were invited. It wasn't about punishing them anymore. It was about celebrating the life I'd built, the family I'd chosen, the happiness I'd found despite them. On my wedding day, I thought about that 14-year-old girl at LAX, terrified and alone, watching her family walk away. I wished I could go back and tell her that she'd not only survive but thrive. That the family that abandoned her didn't define her worth. That she'd find real love, real family, real purpose. That the pain would transform into something meaningful. That she'd be more than okay. She'd be happy. Today, I'm 35 years old. Verify is now valued at over $5 billion and operates in 40 countries. We've helped millions of people protect themselves from fraud and impersonation. We've prevented countless scams, identified thousands of fake accounts, and made the internet a little bit safer. I've been named to Forbes' 30 Under 30 and 40 Under 40 lists. I've spoken at conferences around the world. I've been interviewed by every major media outlet. I've built a life that exceeds every dream I had as a struggling teenager. But the success isn't what matters most. What matters is the family I've built. Alex, who loves me unconditionally and never makes me prove my worth. My friends, who've been there through every up and down. My team at Verify, who believe in our mission and work tirelessly to protect people. The kids in my foundation, who remind me why this work matters. That's my real family. That's what makes life meaningful. I still think about that day at LAX sometimes. Not with anger anymore, but with a strange kind of gratitude. Because that abandonment, as traumatic as it was, set me free. It forced me to become independent, to build my own life, to define success on my own terms. If my parents hadn't left me at that airport, I might have stayed in that toxic family dynamic forever. I might have spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who were incapable of giving it. I might never have discovered my own strength, my own resilience, my own worth. So in a twisted way, their worst moment as parents became the catalyst for my best life. Their failure to love me taught me how to love myself. Their abandonment led me to the family I was always meant to have. I never responded to any of my biological family's emails. I never gave them the closure or forgiveness they were seeking. Some people think that makes me cold or unforgiving. But I disagree. Forgiveness isn't something you owe to people who hurt you. It's not a debt that has to be paid. It's a gift you give when and if you choose to, and only if it serves your own healing. I don't forgive them because forgiveness would require a relationship I don't want. It would require opening a door I've chosen to keep closed. It would require letting people back into my life who've proven they can't be trusted with access to my heart. And I'm okay with that choice. I'm at peace with it. Last month, I was invited to give a TED Talk about resilience and building success from adversity. I told my story again, but this time with a different focus. Not on the abandonment or the betrayal, but on what came after. On the choice to survive and thrive. On the decision to build rather than destroy. On the power of chosen family. I ended the talk with this. When I was 14 years old, my family left me at an airport and flew away. They thought they were teaching me a lesson about consequences. But the lesson I learned was different than the one they intended. I learned that you can survive anything if you're determined enough. I learned that family is a choice, not an obligation. I learned that the people who abandon you don't get to define your worth or your future. And I learned that sometimes, the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full of love and purpose and joy that their absence doesn't matter anymore. To anyone out there who's been abandoned, betrayed, or thrown away by people who were supposed to love you, your story doesn't end with their failure. It begins with your choice to rise above it. You are not defined by the people who couldn't see your worth. You are defined by what you build from the ashes they left behind. Choose yourself. Choose your own family. Choose your own path. And build something so beautiful that their rejection becomes irrelevant. That's the real victory. That's the real justice. That's the real happy ending. The talk has been viewed over 20 million times. I get messages every day from people who've experienced similar betrayals, who've been abandoned by their families, who are struggling to build lives from nothing. And I tell them all the same thing. You are enough. You are worthy. You are capable of building something extraordinary. Your family's failure to see that is their loss, not yours. This is Maya Chen, signing off. To the family that left me at LAX, thank you for setting me free. To everyone else, choose the family that chooses you back. That's where real love lives.